Welcome to the Real Estate Bee with your guide and as a trusted real estate expert, Daniela Gnecki.
Hello and welcome. Today I have a riddle for you. Two foreign buyers are coming to Spain to sign for the purchase of their newly acquired home. One is buying a new development property on the Costa Blanca or Costa del Sol, and the other one is buying a second-hand property in Barcelona. They both come with everything they need to spend their first night in their new home. However, only one of them will be able to do that. Which one? Please write your answer in the comments because I'd love to hear your thoughts, and watch this video until the end if you don't know the answer. Beyond the obvious, there are several very important differences between buying a new development property or a second-hand property in Spain. Some of these differences concern the price negotiation, the types of contracts that you sign, the payment terms, very important elements. In this video, I will list the 10 main differences between buying a new development home or a second-hand home that you must know. Before starting, please subscribe to this channel, like the video preemptively, and hit the notification button. Now, let's start. And I tell you today, I'm outside because it's way too hot to take videos inside. Number one, state and location. Of course, a new development property is by definition new. And often you have to buy it off plan or before the end of the construction. Therefore, you may be able to visit a showroom unit, or you can visit the office of the developer and see examples of materials, the type of kitchen, the type of bathroom, but you won't be able to actually enter the apartment that you are buying unless it's key ready. And it's very rare to be able to buy new development properties key ready because they sell so fast that by the time the construction is finished, they are all sold out. Second-hand properties, of course, are properties that you can visit. You can enter the actual home that you are going to buy. You can check everything. You can see it. You can see how you feel in it. You can check the light, the sound, if it's silent, if it's noisy. You can actually start having the feeling of what it is to live in the property. Location is also very important. Usually new development properties are never in the city center, for example, or even in the town center because there is no space. Unless it's a new town that it's growing, new development properties, for example, on the Costa del Sol, on the Costa Blanca, you find them usually around the city, on the hills, a bit out, or in the suburban areas of the city. Second-hand properties are everywhere, and you can buy a property right in the historical city center. Architecture, it's also very different. You can find the magnificent second-hand property, historical one with the wooden beams, decorated ceilings, hydraulic floors, stone walls with very important historical features that add a lot of value to the property, while new built properties are usually much more standard. The architecture is less interesting. On the other hand, they may be more modern in terms of installation. Number two, purchase timing. When you buy a second-hand property, you sign a reservation. Usually you have 1 or maximum 2 weeks time to do the due diligence of the property, and then you sign the down payment contract. And after that, the timing before signing at the notary depends on whether you are requesting a mortgage or not, in which case it's the timing of the bank, or it depends on the specific agreements between the two parties. But usually it's never more than 2 or 3 months. New development properties, you sign the reservation, then you have 30 days to do the due diligence, for your lawyer to check that everything is in order. Then you sign the down payment contract, and afterwards you have to wait for the property to be actually finished. It may take up to 18 months or 2 years. If you buy in the first phases of the construction, the whole project may take up to 2 years. So it's much longer timing. Number 3, payment terms. When you buy a second-hand property, you pay a reservation, which is usually 1% of the price of the property, or it can be a fixed amount, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, usually not much more than that. Then, when you sign the down payment contract, you pay 10% of the property price. And when you sign at the notary, you pay 90%. When you pay the 10%, the amount that you paid at the reservation is deducted from this 10%, and it becomes part of the down payment of the property. And then 90% is paid at the notary. When you buy a newly built property, the reservation is usually a fixed amount that can be 5,000, 6,000, 10,000, even 20,000, or including even more for top luxury properties. Then, after the 30 days, when at the moment of the down payment, usually you pay 30% of the price of the property, sometimes minus what you have paid at the moment of the reservation, sometimes not. Then, if the construction is still in its early phases, there are still some months before the end of the construction, usually during the construction you pay an additional 10%. Sometimes there are different payment terms. For top luxury properties, you may be required to pay 20%. But on average, the most usual case, before signing at the notary, you must pay 40% of the price of the property. Be aware that if you apply for a mortgage, you will get the mortgage at the moment of the signature at the notary, meaning that this 40% is money that you must have already available. Number 4, purchase taxes. Second-hand properties are subject to ITP, Impuestos de Transmisiones Patrimoniales Property Transfer Tax, which goes from 6% to 10% depending on the autonomous regions of Spain. This tax is paid within 30 days from the signature of the purchase deeds at the notary. So you sign at the notary and then you have 30-day time to pay this tax. New development properties are subject to VAT. VAT is 10% everywhere in Spain. You pay this 10% on top of each individual payment, reservation, down payment, and payment at the notary. Every time you pay something, you pay VAT on top of it immediately. Additionally, new development properties are subject to stamp duty, which goes from 0.5% to 2% depending on the regions. There is no stamp duty on second-hand properties. Go watch my video about the taxes related to the purchase price if you want to know more about this. Number 5, price negotiation. On second-hand properties, there is always some space for price negotiation, unless you find one of these sellers who says that I'm not dropping €1. But usually you can negotiate the price. You can also negotiate on other things. For example, you can ask the seller to make some repairs in the property before you buy it, or to leave part of the furniture, or to commit something. Or you can actually negotiate the purchase price. It is quite usual. On new development properties, there is no price negotiation whatsoever. Why? Because if a developer sells 10 units that are identical and are at the same price, it becomes hard to justify why they offer a discount to you and not to another buyer. So there is no price negotiation. However, there are other forms of price negotiation. For example, if you buy in the first phases of the project, that's when the developer offers the lowest prices, because that's the period in which they want to sell more units, because with that money they finance the start of the construction. Therefore, it is very advisable, if you want to buy a new development property, to buy it as soon as possible, be informed when a new phase is starting, because you can make a great deal. If you go to my website, therealestateb.com, you can ask information about any development, and by doing that, you can sign up to be informed of similar properties and inform about new phases. This is a form of price negotiation. Or sometimes when it's the last unit in the promotion, they can offer a special discount. Sometimes they can offer other things, not strict price negotiation, but for example, they can offer you some extras that you would have to pay normally. They include it. For example, if you want to build an outdoor kitchen on your terrace, which is something that usually is paid extra, the developer can offer it to you for free. Or they can include other elements, for example, part of the furniture if you buy the showroom apartment, or if you buy the furniture package. On that, you may be able to negotiate. But strict price negotiation, forget about it. Number 6, the types of contracts. This is very important. I'm talking about the down payment stage, because the purchase deeds at the notary is the same type of contract for any type of property in Spain. But the down payment contract that you sign is different. There are two elements that are the same for new development and second hand. First, the down payment is a private contract signed between seller and buyer. It can be signed by digital signature. You don't need to meet in person. And it's a private agreement between the two parties. Also, it usually includes a penalty clause in case one of the two parties withdraw from the transactions before the signature at the notary. Where is the important difference? For second-hand properties, you can choose what type of down payment contract you sign. The most used one is called the arras penitenciales, arras contract. There are different types of arras, but the most usual one is the arras penitenciales. This is a private agreement between the two parties, as I said, that you can customize, so it can include specific agreements. For example, that the seller is going to repair something before you buy, that is commits to leave part of the furniture, or to do any other specific adjustment that you have decided. Also, very important, you can decide who is going to sign at the notary after signing this contract. What do I mean? You can sign the reservation and the arras contract in your own name, and then at the notary, you can sign in your own name and the name of your partner or your kid. You decide that each one is owner of 50% of the property, or 60-40, whatever you want. And this can be decided afterwards, at the moment of the signature at the notary. With new development properties, the type of contract that you sign is called private purchase contract. This is a standard contract where usually you cannot change a word. Again, why? Because if a developer is selling 50 properties in the same building, they cannot sign 50 different types of contracts. The contract is standard. It includes everything that needs to be included, and it cannot be changed. And also, whoever is in this contract whoever appears as buyer must be signing the purchase deeds at the notary in exactly the same conditions, the same terms. You cannot change who is buying before signing at the notary. If you are buying 50% with your partner, you have to sign the reservation, the private purchase contract already in these terms. You cannot change it. So this is a very important difference you must be aware of. Sometimes also when you buy second-hand property, you may decide to sign a private purchase contract, but it is not mandatory. While with new development properties, it is always the case. Number 7, money warranties. By law, the developers must protect the payments, the interim payments of the buyers of new development properties with bank warranties or insurance policies. This is dictated by law in Spain, which means that if something happens and the developer cannot complete the project, you will get your money back because your money is guaranteed by bank warranties or insurance policies. With second-hand properties, there is no such thing. Also, with second-hand properties, you only pay 10% of the price of the property with a clause that if the transactions doesn't end well, the seller must give you the money back doubled, and the operation is much faster. Number 8, warranties on the property itself. Again, by law in Spain, new development properties are covered by different types of warranties depending on the possible defaults that the property may have. This is to protect the buyer from possible defects in the construction, because when you buy, you don't actually visit the property. The property often is not there yet. The first and most important warranty is a 10-year warranty on the structure of the building. If there is any structural default, the developer, the constructor, is responsible for 10 years by law. If during these 10 years you sell the property, this guarantee is transferred to the new buyer. The second one is a 3-year guarantee on habitability issues. Anything related to installations inside the property that break down, any problem that you may have while you start using the home, it's covered for 3 years. Then there is 1 year guarantee on finishing defects. For example, tiling or aesthetic elements that are not well placed, well installed. You have 1 year guarantee on this. On second-hand properties, you have no such guarantees. What you do, you can actually, of course, visit the property before buying it. You also have the option, if you want, to visit with anyone, any expert you want. You can visit with an architect. You can visit with anyone who can check that everything is in order. And anyway, even if you don't have by law these guarantees, you are protected by law on possible hidden defaults. Meaning that if you buy a second-hand property and then you discover something that greatly affects the habitability of the property and its value, then the purchase can actually be voided, and you can claim this with the seller. Sometimes the seller didn't even know that this hidden default existed, in which case he would have to take it over against the person who sold the property to him before. This is something that you are protected by law when you buy a second-hand property. There is also some measure of responsibility anyway by the seller. If you enter the property, you start using it, and immediately something breaks down, you can ask for the seller to pay for the repair or to take care of it. It really depends. That's why the best way is to check everything, because you can to check everything before you purchase the property, so you don't run any risk, because you know that everything works properly. This is why when you sign for the purchase of a second-hand property, the purchase deeds says always that the property is sold as it is. Meaning that you have visited it, you accept its state, and you are aware of its physical and administrative state. Very important difference. Number 9, customization. If you buy a new development property early enough, you usually have time to customize the property. You can choose, for example, the color of the floor. You can choose the type of kitchen. They often gives you a few options, and you can decide, you can choose which one you want. Sometimes you can also choose some extra optional elements to be installed, like a fireplace, for example, a barbecue on your terrace, a plunge pool, a swimming pool. It's something that you can, if you buy early enough, you can see with the developer. When you buy a second-hand property, there is no such thing as customization, but of course, you can refurbish yourself the property and make all the changes you wish. And this is also a very good way to buy properties for a lowest price when you buy something that needs renovation, and then you can change the property and make it to your own needs, taste, and with whatever you desire. Number 10, and this is the answer to our initial riddle: utilities. When you buy a second-hand property, unless the property has been abandoned for several years and the utilities have been disconnected, you always buy with the utility accounts that are active. Electricity, gas, if there is gas, water, they are active. And all you have to do after purchasing the property is putting them in your own name, something that usually your lawyer does for you. So you can immediately enter the property, you have electricity, you have water, you can start living in the property from the very minute you leave the notary. New development properties, on the other hand, even if they have all the installations ready, have no utility accounts active. You have to take care of installing your water meter, your specific meter for electricity. You have to set up your own account. There is no water, there is no electricity ever in new development properties. I have seen developers that build actually very good properties receiving very bad reviews because the buyers say, I paid a lot for this property and when I went there was no electricity. It's always like that. You have to take care of calling the water company, the electricity company, and you have to wait that they come and they set up the account for you. How long does it take? For the water, it's usually quite quick. 3 days, 4 days. For the electricity, it can take up to 2 weeks. And this is why our buyer at the beginning of this video, who came to Spain to sign for the purchase of a new development property, will not be able to spend the night in their home. They may spend a romantic night with candlelight, but without water, it really becomes impossible. On the other hand, of course, when you buy a new development property, these properties are highly efficient energetically. Usually the energy certificate the label is A or at the worst B. When you buy a second-hand property, unless it is completely refurbished, including the installations, you will never have such an efficiency level. And even if it's refurbished, you may have a good efficiency level, but it will never be A or B if they are located in a building that is a building from the 80s, 90s, even 2000, because the types of installation were different. Now in Spain, by law, new development must have very highly efficient energetic systems. So these were the 10 main differences between buying a new development property or a second-hand property in Spain. I hope you found this interesting. Please, I invite you to like this video, to subscribe. If there is any of these aspects that you would like me to discuss more in detail, please write it in the comments and I will make more videos about whatever you would like more information on. For now, I thank you very much for spending this time with me. I will see you in my next video, and in the meantime, take care.